What is going on, guys? ESG here, back with a new FPL video. In today's video, I'm going to be going through my team for Game Week 2 and a couple of players that I have been keeping my eye on to potentially bring into my team ahead of tomorrow's deadline. As always, if you do enjoy the video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are new. And with that being said, let's get into it. So to start off with, I'm going to be going through my goalkeeper and the defence, and not much has changed bar one player coming off my bench into my starting 11. So starting off with the goalkeeper, I still have Dean Henderson. Now, Palace's defence has been weakened in my opinion with Anderson leaving to go to Fulham, but that's not enough to make me want to waste a free transfer on my goalkeeper. If I'm going to be changing my goalkeeper, I'll just wait till a wild card, mainly because none of the other 4.5 keepers do it for me really. Maybe sells at Nottingham Forest, but again, I don't want to be wasting a free transfer on a goalkeeper move. So, could Palace keep a clean sheet against West Ham? Yes, they still have Gahey, they still have Munoz, they still have Mitchell, they've got other players, but I do think that losing Anderson will be a big blow and then maybe a knock-on effect. Does Anderson leaving mean that Gahey won't leave Palace now? Not entirely, but I think it's less likely that they lose both of them this transfer window, so I can't really see Gahey going anywhere. So they still have, in my opinion, one of the best English centre-backs. And last season, Palace were really good at home defensively, but again, losing Anderson might prove to be a bit detrimental, and they might not keep as many clean sheets. So that is one that I'm keeping my eye on, and it may force me into an early wildcard so that I can bring in a goalkeeper that is guaranteed clean sheets. But for now, I'm happy enough to stick with Dean Henderson in net. Moving down to the defence, and only one player has changed, and that's Robinson coming in for Porro. So I'm going to start off with that. Now, the only reason that I've benched Porro is because of that injury concern. It looked like he rolled his ankle against Leicester, and we've not really had any news yet whether he's fit to play. As I'm recording this, Postecoglou hasn't had his press conference, so things could change in my team before tomorrow's deadline if we get news that Porro is fit. And then I have a decision to make whether to bench Gabriel or bench Robinson, but I'd like to start Robinson against Leicester now. They've not got the Anderson deal finalised yet, so Anderson won't be playing for Fulham. But I still think Fulham defensively against Leicester can keep a clean sheet. So I'd like to start Robinson in that game. And I think Robinson could even get an assist or two in that game because Leicester defensively didn't look great at all. And for up front, they only really have Jamie Vardy. Yes, they have Cordova-Reeve, but he's more of a winger. And yes, although he could cause them problems, he played for Fulham last season, so they know how to probably counter him a little bit better. So I'm happy starting Robinson. Now, just moving on to Pedro Porro really quickly. If we do get news that he's fit to start, he will be coming into my starting 11 because against Everton, I could see a clean sheet from Spurs, and even if not a clean sheet, I can see another attack in return from Porro. So it is worth keeping that in mind, and chances are I'll do a deadline stream tomorrow. The deadline's at 11, so I'll be going live at about 10:30, just with some last minute thoughts. But for now, Porro's on my bench just because he is a little bit of a doubt, but that could change. Moving on to Gabriel. Now, although Arsenal are away to Aston Villa, Arsenal's away form last season was actually better than their home form because they line up a little bit differently. They line up a little bit more defensively than they do at home, and I can see a clean sheet in that game. It's still the start of the season, so Villa aren't fully up and running yet, and Watkins didn't look entirely strong against West Ham in that first game, and I think it'll be the same this game. I think he's still trying to find his form after the international break and after the summer, so I don't really think Watkins will be much of a threat to Arsenal in that game, and I can't really see any of the other forwards for Aston Villa at this moment in time being a big threat to Arsenal. Now, last season, Aston Villa seemed to be Arsenal's bogey team. They lost twice to them. Can I see that happening again this season? Maybe yes, but with it still being the start of the season and Arsenal lining up a bit differently away from home and going more defensive, I can probably see a clean sheet and maybe Arsenal taking a 1-0 win from that game. So I'm happy enough starting Gabriel. If Porro's fit, I'll probably start Porro instead of Gabriel just to almost guarantee a clean sheet, just because I'm not entirely confident with the Arsenal defence for this game week. The reason that I brought in Gabriel was for last week and for game week 3. So I would like to start Porro a little bit more than Gabriel. So if we get news that Porro is fit, he's 100% coming in instead of Gabriel. But for now, I've got Gabriel just because we know he is 100% fit and will be playing. And then moving on to Trent Alexander-Arnold. In my opinion, Trent is the best defensive asset that you can go for. And people might say I'm being biased because I am a Liverpool fan, but if anybody saw the way that he played against Ipswich, and that was away from home, especially in that second half, I can see him doing it a lot more at home, and I can see Liverpool being stronger at home. So that game against Brentford this week, I think, is an excellent reason to start Trent. I can see a clean sheet because Brentford is still without Ivan Toney because chances are he's going to Saudi. So they don't really have that attacking threat. Yes, they have Mbeumo. Yes, they have Vista. They have Carvalho as well, who's moved from Liverpool. But I still think that team is trying to find its form without Toney. So I can see a clean sheet from Liverpool this week. And then going forward as well, I can see Trent getting an assist or maybe getting a goal from a free kick like he did last season. I think we know that Trent's on majority of set pieces, especially free kicks. And if he gets a free kick on the edge of the box, I can see him maybe getting a goal from it, if not an assist. So I'm happy enough to go with Trent. Looking at my bench as well, I have Johnson there still from Ipswich. He won't be going anywhere near my team. They've got Man City this week. I think it could be 5-0. And then looking at Porro, still 5.5. If it looks like if we get any news that he's going to be out for a while, I might be tempted to make a transfer there and bring in somebody like a Gavardiol from Man City, just because I think I'd rather start Gavardiol, especially with them having Ipswich at home. I can see a clean sheet there, and even if not Gavardiol, I could bring in Rico Lewis from Man City. It's 4.5, but then frees up funds elsewhere for a transfer next week. But I want your thoughts in the comments about that. Do you think I should stick with Porro just on the off chance that he does play? Or would you transfer him out for somebody? And if so, who would it be? So now moving on to the midfield, and I have gone for 5 in midfield for this week. And as you can see, Solanke is on my bench, and that is because we have just had confirmation that Solanke is going to miss this game week due to an injury that he picked up in that first game, which is a huge blow, but I will get to that when I get to the attackers. But for now, let's look at the midfield. So to start off with, let's go with Mohamed Salah. So I've got Salah down as my captain at the minute, and I can't see that changing. When I'm looking at my captain for this week, I want to go for somebody who's most likely to get close to Haaland for points. And I think Salah is that guy because I don't have Haaland and I don't have any City assets. With them being against Ipswich, I need somebody who will get goals and assists this game week so that I'm not losing out on too many points. And I think Salah is the person who will get me the most points this week, hence why I've captained him. Liverpool are at home to Brentford this week, which on paper is a really good fixture. Brentford didn't look great defensively against Palace, and they gave away quite a few chances and probably should have lost. That Eze goal that got ruled out probably shouldn't have been ruled out, and there was a couple of other goals that they did score, and it was an inch offside. So I can see Liverpool getting the win this week, especially at home against Brentford. And I think at home, as I have mentioned, I think Liverpool will be a lot stronger at home than they were away. Last week they started the game in the first half. They didn't play well at all, but in the second half they woke up and played a lot more rapidly and managed to get those goals. And I can see at home them playing more like they did in the second half against Ipswich, but for the whole game. So I'm happy enough starting Salah and putting him as my captain. Moving on to Jota, who's my other Liverpool player. Again, I'm happy enough starting him. It looks like he's going to be the starting number 9 for Liverpool. And even when Jota came off in about the 75th minute, and he came off for Gakpo. And both Gakpo and Slot have both said that Gakpo is seen as more of a left winger. So the fact that Darwin Núñez didn't come on at all makes me think that Jota is looked at as that preferred number 9. And with him scoring in that game, and with the way that he links up the midfield to the attack, I can see Jota being a locked-on starter for at least the next 3 or 4 game weeks. So that gives me enough confidence to start him this week and in future weeks as well. And then maybe look at wildcarding in game week 6 to take him out and bring in somebody else. Moving on to Saka next. At 10 million, I'm not benching Saka at all. I don't think. I know that they're against Villa, and chances are he might not get a goal. It might be a 0-0 draw or even a 1-all. But I'm happy enough to start Saka on the off chance that he gets forward. All it takes is for Arsenal to get a penalty or for Saka to get into a good position on the edge of the box or in the box, and he can create a chance from it. So I'm happy enough to start Saka this week on the off chance that he does score. And worst case scenario, I get a 2 or 3 pointer, but then other people that also have Saka would be getting a 2 or 3 pointer as well. So I'm happy enough to start him, especially with them having Brighton next week. I can see him getting a return in that game. Moving on to Nkunku next. Now, I started Nkunku next week, and I did originally have Nkunku benched, but with that Solanke injury, I've kind of been forced to bring Nkunku in. I could use a transfer, which I'll get to a little bit later on, but I don't really want to use a transfer this week. I think I'd rather roll this week and then use 2 transfers next week to get Ollie Watkins in and downgrade elsewhere. But with Nkunku, he played midweek. So yesterday, Chelsea played in the Europa Conference League qualifiers, and Nkunku played for about 57 minutes, and he did get a goal, but it was a penalty. And as we all know, Nkunku won't be on penalties for Chelsea. However, when Cole Palmer came on, it looked like Palmer picked up a little bit of an injury, and he did limp off after the game and was holding the back of his thigh. So could Palmer be rested this week against Wolves? Potentially, yes. I can't really see it. However, if Palmer does get rested, Nkunku is probably locked on to start and would probably be on penalties. So there is that to keep in mind. And because of that, it makes me kind of want to start him and not sell him this week on the off chance Palmer doesn't play and Nkunku is on penalties. But either way, I think Nkunku will be starting, and against Wolves, I can see him playing a lot differently. Now, last week they were against Man City, so we weren't really expecting much from Chelsea. But Nkunku played out wide, and that's not his position. I think he needs to play through the middle as either a number 9 or a number 10. And if he's not playing there this week, then next week I might look at selling him. But for now, I'm confident and happy enough to start Nkunku with Solanke picking up that injury. And then moving on to Smith Rowe. Now, last week Smith Rowe was on the bench and he got a 3-pointer. This week I can see him getting a return against Leicester. Defensively, Leicester didn't look strong at all. And I think this will be an excellent game for Smith Rowe to show everybody what he can do. Now, he came off in about the 65th minute last week, and that was because of match fitness. As everybody knows, when he was at Arsenal, he hardly played, and he did pick up a little bit of an injury, but again, his minutes weren't there. So for the start of his Fulham career, his minutes are being managed, but he is looking like he will be a frequent starter. So again, I'm happy enough to start Nkunku because in 65, 70 minutes, yes, he might get subbed off then, but it gives him enough time to get involved in the game. And the positions he was taking up against Manchester United, they were good positions. He was getting forward an awful lot. And I think against Leicester, he'll be doing it a lot more and getting into a lot more attacking positions. And again, can potentially get a goal or an assist to boost my points up in my team. So that is the midfield that I've gone for. I am pretty set on that. I might just look at making 1 or 2 transfers, and if I was making a transfer, chances are it would be Nkunku out for a Doku or a Bernardo Silva to get that City coverage in there. But with Solanke now being injured, I think that's a transfer that I would need to make, and I'll get onto that as I get to the attackers now. So finally moving on to the attackers, and this is where a spanner has been thrown into the works because as I've been recording, Postecoglou did his pre-match press conference, and he has confirmed that Solanke has picked up a knock in the first game, and he's going to be out for the Everton game, which is a big blow for many FPL teams. A lot of people brought in Solanke because of the first 2 games. He blanked in the first game against Leicester when he probably should have had 1 or 2 goals, and now he's picked up an injury and he's out for the Everton game. So it's a huge blow, and I don't really know what to do with my team now. I have benched Solanke for Nkunku because there aren't any transfers that I can make to get Solanke out and somebody else in. I can next week when I have 2 free transfers, but for this week I can't, so I might be down to just 1 bench player. Now, a bit of good news from it was Pedro Porro is fit and will probably be starting, so I have a decision to make there about who do I bench. So I can either start Porro and bench Nkunku or go for a 4-4-2, which is an option, but at the same time I don't like doing that. So I might be tempted to bench Gabriel for Porro, so I'm going to be doing one of them things. Porro will be starting for me. I'm just not decided who I'm benching yet. It will either be Gabriel or Nkunku. Most likely Gabriel, but then if Arsenal keep a clean sheet, I would be kicking myself. So, bit of decision making to make there. But let's get on to the actual attackers that I have gone for. So, starting off with Maniz, a lot of managers are now looking to bring in Maniz and take out Solanke. Unfortunately, I can't do that because I already had Maniz from the off. So, that is a little bit of a downside to Solanke's injury. I can't really make a transfer this week. However, I'm happy with having Maniz. Last week against Manchester United, Maniz didn't look great, but they were away to Man United, so I gave them the benefit of the doubt. And this week at home to Leicester, who Leicester didn't look good defensively at all. So I can see Maniz getting onto the score sheet this week with a goal or two. And because he is that out and out striker for them, he doesn't really get benched. Yes, he got subbed off last week, but that was because he wasn't playing great. I can see him playing a lot more minutes this week, 70, 75, maybe 80 minutes before he gets subbed off. And in that time, I know he can return, especially against a Leicester side that didn't play great. Now, away from home, Leicester might line up differently and they might go a lot more defensively, and Fulham may struggle to break them down, but I can still see Fulham getting the win because I think they'll want to come out and prove a point that last week, yes, they lost to Manchester United 1-0 by a late goal, but at home to a promoted team, I'd like to see Fulham winning that game and Maniz getting onto the score sheet. So I'm confident enough to start Maniz this week. And then moving on to Alexander Isak. Last week was a very disappointing week. He only got an assist, and that was when Newcastle went down to 10 men. So Fabian Schär got sent off in the first half, and before he got sent off, Newcastle were playing awful. And when he got sent off, that's when they started to play better. So they played better with 10 men than they did with 11 men. Now, had Schär stayed on and Newcastle had 11 men for the whole game, could they have played better in the second half? Maybe, but nobody really knows. Like, in hindsight, it didn't happen, so nobody really knows. But I'm confident enough to stick with Isak for this week. They're away to Bournemouth. I can see him getting on the score sheet with a goal or an assist again. I can't see him blanking against Bournemouth. So with him being that out-and-out striker, I'm willing to give him one more week. And with Solanke now being injured, I'm kind of forced to start Isak. I was starting Isak anyway. I was lining up as a 3-4-3 with Nkunku on the bench, but because of that injury, Nkunku's come in. But again, I'm happy enough to start with these. Like, I'm not going to be captaining him just because they are away from home, and I can't see him getting as high as a return as he would at home. But away from home, I can still see him getting a goal. Looking at Solanke really quickly, with him picking up that injury, I would like to transfer him out, but I don't have anybody to transfer him out for. So chances are this week, I just bite the bullet and I roll the transfer. And then next week, I look at transferring out both Porro and Solanke because the fixtures get really tough. I'm bringing in Ollie Watkins for Solanke and then a 4.5 mid defender, for Porro. I'm just not really decided on who yet, but I will get into that now. So I just really quickly wanted to touch on the actual team that I do have and look at some transfers that I might look at making. So starting off with Nkunku, just because of the minutes risk, and I kind of need a midfielder that will start. If I take him out, I have 7 million left in my budget to bring in a player, and there are a few players that do catch my eye to potentially bring in, but none of them are great. So there's Eze from Palace who I could bring in. There's also Mitoma who had a really good first game week. Pedro Neto, but I can't really see him starting. Bernardo Silva and Doku are the two that I'm eyeing up the most from Man City. But then I look at it and think, do I really want to be making a midfield transfer this week when Nkunku probably will start? And the answer to that is no. So chances are I keep Nkunku. And then if I look at Solanke, there's not really anybody from the attackers that I am liking the look of. Like, I can't afford Haaland. I have 8 million, so I can't even afford Havertz now because of that price increase. I could afford Mateta, but again, I'm not entirely satisfied with the fixtures that Palace have coming up. Tony isn't going to be playing for Brentford. Darwin Núñez and Gakpo I can't go for, so none of them really catch my eye. There's maybe Chris Wood from Forest, but again, I don't really want to be downgrading in my attack. So chances are I just keep what I have and I just bench Solanke and hope for the best with Nkunku. But I do have a bit of decision making to make tonight. Now, I will be going live on YouTube tomorrow with a deadline stream, probably from about 10, maybe half 10. So just doing the last half hour with the deadline being at 11. And then I will talk through my final team and any transfers that I have made. So make sure that you do check out the live stream if you see me live. But yeah, for now, I can't really see myself making any transfers, and I'll just roll a transfer because then for game week 3, I'll have 2 free transfers. So I could do Ollie Watkins in for Solanke and then do Porro out for a 4.5, whatever 4.5 that would be. But for now, I am thinking of rolling that transfer. So there we have it, guys. That is my team for game week 2. So as always, I want your thoughts in the comments. First of all, what do you think of the team that I'm going with in game week 2? And do you think I'm taking a huge risk not having any Man City assets at all, and especially not having Haaland? And I also want to know, if you do have Haaland, are you going to be triple captaining him this week with the fixture against Ipswich? As always, if you did enjoy the video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are new. And until next time, thank you for watching.